All right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to King School. I'm Dean Kitaboski, the student body president here at King, and I just wanted to come up, say a quick hello, and also introduce you to some of our important values here at King before we get started. So, King has 4 virtues we like to emphasize, those being integrity, kindness, perseverance, and respect. Now, each value is incredibly valuable and relevant to our community. First, integrity. It's important to have integrity with not only your work, but with your peers and those around you. Kindness. It's important to be kind to everybody. Perseverance. Fighting through adversity is the way we grow. And finally, respect. It's important to have respect for everybody around you, not just your teachers, but also your friends and your peers. If I could add a 5th value, however, one that's most relevant to King, in my opinion, that'd be community. Because ours is so incredibly strong and one of the highlights of why I think King is such a great place. So, King emphasizes a strong community more than anything else. Forming relationships with teachers is encouraged and incredibly, in my opinion, easy to do here. I remember my first week of freshman year, I walked in, and within the first week, every teacher knew me by my first and last name, which is a feat, in my opinion, because Kitaboski is not always easy to remember. But I think that set the tone for me in how we look at our teachers here and how we form bonds with everybody. Additionally, creating relationships with other kids. It's never difficult to do due to the many different social groups and sports teams at our disposal, and additionally, through classes. Additionally, forming relationships with older students. With all the school-wide assemblies we have of all the different grade levels, and through various programs run by clubs and sports organizations, it's very easy to make connections with older students, even in different schools. And finally, forming relationships with administration, which I know is tough to do in a lot of schools, but here at King, it's common to see our head of school, Ms. Mouse, walking around and just have a conversation with her, which I think is a great addition to our King community. Our heavy emphasis on a strong community is just one part of what makes King such a great place, such a great environment, and one that influences many more aspects than just those that I've mentioned. I've always thought of a strong community as being a vital component of any school, and one that is definitely present here at King. Now, with all that being said, I'm going to pass the microphone off to Ms. Nina Newman, and thank you all so much for joining our community.
Thank you, Dean. I always hate following our talented students. Welcome. My name is Nina Newman. I am the Associate Head of School for Advancement and also the Director of Admission and Financial Access. And I'm delighted to see you here. Thank you for tolerating all of our COVID protocols so we could get you here safely and spaced out nicely. And we're really excited to share with you our entire program, of course, focusing mostly on the lower school since you have younger children. But we do want to give you some tastes of what is yet to be in the middle school and upper school years. We're really proud of the pre-K through grade 12 education that we offer here at King. What we decided to do today is to invite you into a conversation instead of just standing here talking at you for the next half hour or so. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to come up on stage. You will be invited to join in a conversation with our head of school, Carol Maoz, followed by, I'll do it in order of them walking up the steps. Sandy Lazare-Duff, our head of the lower school, and Marnie Sadlusky, our associate head for strategic programs and also the head of the upper school. And they're going to start with a conversation, and then we will open it up to questions and answers. So make a little note if you have any questions, and we'll get to them right at the end of the program. Carol, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, thank you. Hi, everybody, welcome. We're all so glad that you're here with us today. It's an important day for us, and it's an important day for you. It's important for us because we have the opportunity and the honor to share with you what about our school, about our values, and about what makes our approach to teaching and learning unique. Before I say a word about why I think it's important to you that we are here today, I did want to just say one thing about Dean, our class president, who spoke first. One is just love listening to our students speak, regardless of what age they are. It really speaks volumes about what our program is all about and what we believe in and what what Dean chose to talk about. And I wanted to just share that one of the first really wonderful experiences that I had at King was what we call our bell ringing ceremony. And it's a long time tradition at King that we come together as a community and ring in the new year filled with hope and dreams. And this year it was particularly meaningful because the community had not been able to be together for a very long time, and they had missed last year's bell ringing ceremony. We had it outdoors. The reason I bring it up is that there's a student from each division, a 5th grader, an 8th grader, and a 12th grader who speak, and they don't coordinate their speeches at all. They work on them independently. All three of them, the theme was the same. It was, how can we be kind to one another? How can we take care of one another? And when students, it's one thing for teachers and school leaders to talk about virtues, and it's another thing when your students talk about them and live them and really emphasize them. So it was wonderful to hear Dean talk about that, and indeed about the sense of community. So it's important for us, it's important for you, because anytime you are thinking about your child's education and exploring opportunities, thinking about how they're going to learn and grow and thrive is certainly an important day and an important decision for all of you. And we know that where you choose to send your children to school is one of the most significant and impactful decisions that you will make. And I say that having 3 grown children and having been in the world of education for a very long time, this is an important decision. We hope that by the end of the day, you'll feel a little bit more secure in your decision-making process. You'll understand the unique character of the King School, and you'll have many of your questions answered. And also, you'll feel very comfortable to continue to ask those questions, continue to learn more about King and about this very special culture that we have here. You've noticed, of course, that I am joined today not only by Sandy, the head of our lower school, but also by Marnie, who is the upper school and associate head of strategic programs. And there's a very good reason why we've asked her to join us. We are a pre-K through 12 school, and I want to begin by saying just a few words about why I think that that places us in a sort of best of all worlds situation. Each of our 3 divisions is completely committed to meeting our students where they are, and they all have, each one has a deep understanding of the age group and the developmental milestones of those students. We are specialists in our field, from early education to upper elementary, to the interesting and sometimes fascinating and sometimes challenging middle school years, and then to the upper school when they fully develop as scholars and head off to independent living at university or college. We know our pedagogy, we know our students, and we make our decisions through the lens of this question: what is in the best interest of the children in our care? As much as the lower school is its own division, and it is, we have the benefits of a campus with extensive facilities and specialists. And they're in just about every field: technologists and linguists and scientists and mathematicians, and they help prepare our students for the next step in their journey. And Marnie will talk about that in a little bit. We also get to be with our students throughout the exciting journey that they have. Watch them grow up into self-aware and deeply committed, fun-loving self-advocates who actually are already at the lower school talking about how to make the world a better place. And because we're committed to this entire journey for our kids, we're really good at teaching children who come from different communities, different schools, and different backgrounds. So today we are going to focus on the pre-K to 5 program. That's what you're most interested in. And we will also help you to see how those foundational skills prepare children for success in the upper grades. I want to frame this conversation that Nina referred to by talking briefly about what I think families should be looking for when you're thinking about a school for your child, specifically an independent school. And then Sandy and Marnie will talk a little bit about how it works at King in terms of these questions that I think you want to get answers to. So every school you go to will talk about academic excellence. Here's what I think you'll want to know. How does the school define academic excellence? And how much of that student learning is based on discovery and exploration? You'll want to learn in what ways teachers respond to student interest and questions, and you'll want to understand how does the school nurture curiosity, because that skill of curiosity, or that trait of curiosity, is one that is necessary for success in school and also beyond school. And importantly, can they give you concrete examples of how it's done? So before I ask Sandy to respond to these questions that I've just mentioned and relate them to the full range of pre-K through 5th grade at King, I want to share a little bit about what I have the pleasure of witnessing pretty much every day. My office is in the lower school, and there's a nice big glass window right next to Sandy's big glass window, and we get to look out at our youngest students every day, the pre-K and the kindergarten. By design, the children spend a good portion of their day outside, and you're going to hear from Sandy that our early childhood program is Reggio Emilia inspired, and she'll say a word about that. But what I will say to start is that Reggio is not a curriculum, it's a philosophy and an approach that we take. You'll hear a lot today about the concept of play, both from people on stage, also in the classrooms when you visit. Play takes many forms. There's unstructured play, there's structured play, directed, undirected, there's playing with words and ideas, with numbers and with concepts. Play happens in the science classroom, it happens in the maker space, it happens in every classroom, and certainly it happens outdoors. Play is about exploration and observation and discovery, all skills you need for academic excellence. And we also know through research that play helps children develop skills of conflict resolution and also, interestingly, I think, of executive functioning. So here's one example of how play relates to academic excellence for our younger students. A few weeks ago, I hosted a pre-K and kindergarten pumpkin hunt. And of course, with cider and donuts and a story, as any good pumpkin hunt would have. The children got to bring one pumpkin home, and they left one pumpkin at school. One morning, about a week later, the children discovered that some of the pumpkins were softening. And one of the students dropped a pumpkin on the ground, and it smashed on the ground. And one of the things that I certainly have noticed here, and I love, is that we don't get too worried about messes. We actually think that making a mess is one of the ways that you learn. So here was this smashed pumpkin on the ground, and if that weren't enough, that just started the experimenting and the hypothesizing and learning a bit about principles of physics, though that would not be the words that they had used. But they were experimenting with these questions. What happens when you drop a pumpkin from different heights? Is there a difference if you drop your pumpkin onto grass or if you drop your pumpkin onto concrete? This wasn't a planned lesson, but it was intentional, meaning the teachers took that opportunity when they saw the kids' interests to follow it, to follow their interests and their questions. This is one example. You'll hear lots more. You might hear about an interest in bugs leading to a bug discovery wall, and you might learn that because we meet kids where they are and we respect their different levels, some kids might be ready to start labeling those bugs using words and writing, and other kids are not quite ready for that. That's okay. They're all going to get there at different times in different ways. But you'll hear how discovery and exploration and play lead to storytelling and literacy, all by meeting the kids where they are. So enough of my stories. I'm sure Sandy has plenty too. But I'm going to ask Sandy, can you please talk about what academic excellence does indeed look like in the lower school, both for the younger grades and the upper elementary grades? How do we nurture curiosity and at the same time ensure that students are getting those foundational skills that we know they need to be successful?
Sure. Thank you, Carol. Good morning. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you. I'd like to start with our Reggio Emilia program. Certainly, Reggio Emilia, it is a city in northern Italy, and there can only be one Reggio Emilia program, and that is the one that exists in Italy. However, any other Reggio program outside of Reggio Emilia in Italy, we say that it is Reggio inspired. By that, it means that we take the best, we are inspired by the approaches, the theory, the practices of Reggio Emilia, of the works of Loris Malaguzzi, who was the founder of the philosophy, the works of Reggio. And what that means is that in a Reggio program, we believe that children are the protagonists of their growth. That means that children come to us. They do not come to us as empty vessels. They are smart. They are intelligent. They already have ideas. They wonder about the world. And so as facilitators of that growth of their own thinking, we as educators, we help to guide them. We help to guide that thinking. We help to guide the things that they wonder about, the questions that they have, and we create an environment to help facilitate the things that they wonder about, which brings me to another aspect of Reggio, which is that the environment is the third teacher. And as you will see when you go and you visit our classrooms, you will notice how intentional we are about the materials that we use. Many of our materials are very organic, and there's also a muted tone to our environment. You will not find vibrant colors. You will find very muted tones, soft colors. The reason being is that we want the focus to be on the works of the children. The children come with their ideas. I love the example that Carol shared with you about the pumpkin, because that is the beginning of the works of an inquiry-based learning model, which is what we use at the lower school. The Reggio approach is inquiry-based. It is hands-on. It is experiential. Our project-based learning approach in grades 1 through 5 is inquiry-based. It is experiential. It is all about children asking questions. It is all about nurturing their curiosity. Our entire campus is the classroom. The children, we guide them, they ask questions. And being a scientist, that is how we start. We start with the work of a scientist. Scientists observe, they ask questions, they gather data, they research, and then they'll research again. They'll ask more questions, and that is what we help to facilitate. That is how we help children to make sense of their world. And you're probably wondering, but how do they learn how to read? How do they learn how to, add and fractions? I see many of you are smiling, right? What about geometry and all of that? Guess what? Once they start to make sense of their world by getting messy, their brains are also getting messy because they are being surrounded by words on the wall. The teachers are inviting them. We say that we set up provocations, which are invitations to learning. And so we are also using poems. We are using books to invite them into the world of literacy. And because they have been making a mess with their hands, they're able to make a mess of their minds and now make sense of the learning and the thinking. And now they are excited about literacy. They are excited about math. And we also want to teach math in context. We want them not just to memorize math, but we want them to have an understanding of the concept of math, because now they will be able to apply and transfer the skills. And so when they are in 5th grade and they're learning about measurement and fractions, it's not just fractions in terms of those numbers, but how does it apply? Yes, we're looking at measurements right here in Stamford, but where am I in the world? Just the other day, I was in a 5th grade classroom. They were applying fractions and measurement in time. The student want to know where they were looking, where they were studying, Sydney, Australia. And there was another student that was looking at Beverly Hills, California, and applying those same skills in terms of measurement and time and how it relates to another child who is in a different time zone. And so that is how we like to think about inquiry, how we like to think about children taking what they're learning and applying it into real world context. I might have, really gone away with that question, Carol.
It's hard. It's hard for you not to. I know. We all get really excited about what we do, and Marnie's probably going to tell you when I ask her the question. She's also going to tell you how long she's been doing this, and I think it's really beautiful that we just love what we do. And I think that that's an inspiration in and of itself. So Marnie, can you please talk about how you see the lower school program preparing students for the next division, and then how the middle school prepares kids for success in the upper school?
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone, first of all. I have been doing this for a long time, but I've been doing it at King School for a long time, and this is my 26th year at King, and I taught in the middle school in the early part of my career in the English and history departments, also taught mathematics briefly. My mother is an elementary early childhood educator specifically, also taught third grade, and my father is a mathematician and a physicist, and he taught at the high school and college levels. So I think it's pretty safe to say that I've sort of been breathing and absorbing the importance of education at every age and stage my whole life. And I will say that what has really compelled me to stay at King for my entire career is its very earnest and sophisticated commitment to honoring the developmental ages and stages of children from the youngest years in our Reggio Emilia inspired program all the way up through that senior year when we all do have the privilege together as a community, teachers in the lower school, middle school, and upper school attend commencement, and we watch those kids, some of them who started in our pre-K3 program, walk across the stage and attend some of the best universities and colleges in the United States and beyond. And it's been, obviously, I could talk about this for a very long time, a really honor and privilege to have spent my career in this way. So what Sandy said about, and Carol as well, about the lower school program being foundational, right? That the postures and the mindsets that students learn and the expert teachers that they encounter, that foundation is absolutely crucial to success in middle school, high school, and beyond. I think in our society, we often don't recognize how important pre-kindergarten programs are. Early childhood is arguably one of the most important times in a child's educational career, and I say that as someone who's been the head of upper school for 15 years, right? And it is actually amazing to me that our society has not recognized, I don't think quickly enough, how important the foundations are. And when the foundations are weak, we see it. We see it as a community. We see it at middle schools in particular across our country. And I am incredibly proud that our lower school is so committed to making sure that we have all of the pieces in place to honor the developmental ages and stages of every single child so they feel known, heard, and understood, and that they are exposed to expert teachers who are mathematicians, who are scientists, who understand literacy, right? Literacy and numeracy is really what we're talking about at the lower school years. And that inquiry-based mindset that Sandy mentioned that starts with Reggio Emilia, those are the conditions, right, that our kids are raised in that then prepare them as their brains develop to enter middle school with power, right? So I think if anyone in this audience has had a middle schooler or someone going from 5th grade into 6th grade into 7th grade, you know that those developmental ages and stages are linked. So at King, it's such a privilege, again, to be a part of a school that knows that actually 4th, 5th, and 6th grade are a really important connected time period or chunk in a kid's developmental age and stage. 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, or sometimes 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, depending on what you're looking at. Those are ages and stages that are deeply connected. So to be in a school that designs its curriculum, that designs all of its activities, its understandings, and its pedagogy, which is just a fancy way for saying teaching, like what you actually do with the kids and what techniques you use to do that, to do whatever you're doing with the kids, that those honor, all of those choices honor the ages and stages the kids are at. It's not like there's a wall between 5th and 6th grade and a wall between 8th and 9th grade. No, the best education starts with a strong foundation and honors those transition points and meets the kids every stage of the way, every step of the stages that they're at. So the other thing I want to say is that I could talk for hours about the amazing ways that the middle school and upper school build on the foundation. But I just want to tell you that by the time middle school rolls around, inferential reasoning, right, their brains are able to do different things, and they start becoming more disciplinary in their thinking, right? And we shape that, right? By the time you're in high school, there's an English department, and a history department, and a science department, and a social science department. But you also want to make sure that you continue to give kids the powerful skills that they need to operate in those spaces. So we don't just say when you move from 5th to 6th grade, okay, now you're leaving an environment where in 4th and 5th grade you were starting to separate out from a classroom where you have a homeroom, and then you're attending a math class or an English class or a science class. We transition the kids smoothly, and then by the time they're in middle school, they're ready to spend time effectively moving, right? Because they're older, they're individuating from you, and they're starting to become young adolescents, younger adolescents, middle adolescents. By the time they get to high school, they're able to differentiate even further and in more sophisticated ways in the different disciplines as they learn ultimately to become a scientist, to think like a scientist, to be able to speak math. Math is a language, right? And to be able to see the world through the eyes of a visual artist, or to hear the world, if you will, through the world of a musician, to be able to compose meaning in their lives, to be young historians who can make sense of this complex world without blinders on, right? Let's look at the whole human picture, and how are we going to make meaning of it? And the last thing I'll say is they also learn how to make it better. When you raise young kids who are curious about the world, who engage in an inquiry-based approach to education, and they're also asking questions about problems and challenges that they see, and they learn that they can make proposals to make it better and see what works. At the lower school, that can mean solving some complicated social problems that happen on the playground, right? It also, as the kids get older, happens in the lab. How are we going to cure cancer, right? I use that as the ubiquitous example. Obviously, there are lots of problems to solve in this world, but they feel empowered, kids feel empowered when they're raised in an environment that teaches them how to solve problems because we took them seriously all along as learners. Does that make sense? I'm giving you a very, very broad gesture of our pre-K-12 approach, but it all starts in the lower school. It all starts with the foundations there. And I'm happy, as you know, afterwards to talk to you about the many ways that the middle school and upper school continue to take what starts in our lower school and make it fly all the way to college and university.
Thanks, Marnie. You know, I just have to say, we have used the word foundation a lot. I can't help but just say, because I've been working with my whole career with this age group, it's not just about the basics. One of the reasons that I think these years are so important is this is when your children develop their attitude toward learning, whether they're going to see learning as fun and exciting and something they want to do for the rest of their lives, or whether they see school as something that happens 5 days a week and can't wait until the weekend. That's the difference. In the lower school is when they figure out that learning is fun and exciting and something they're going to do for the rest of their lives. The second topic I wanted to ask Sandy to talk about is this. We know that, that one of the things that you should be looking for as you're looking at schools is how is your child going to be known and seen as a student, as a learner, and as an individual? Research is clear that students thrive in environments in which they're seen and heard and respected, appreciated, and where they feel safe. An atmosphere where they can find their voice and then develop their voice as well. This environment links directly into how we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm going to ask Sandy to talk about two things. One is, how do we make sure that children do feel welcome when they come here? And then ensure that every child feels seen, heard, valued, and respected. And also, how does that relate to the ways in which we teach about and create the environment for our students to understand about diversity, inclusion, and equity?
Thank you, Carol. Our teachers they're not only passionate about teaching, about what they do, they're passionate about the academics, but more importantly, they're passionate about children thriving in school, about children feeling good about who they are. We have these essential questions at King. Yes, they really, part of it is the academics. Who am I? Who are we? And how do we know it's true? But they also apply to the social emotional, because it's important to us that children feel good about themselves, about their experiences here at King. And one of the ways that we ensure that, it starts with knowing who they are. Yes, they're trying to figure out who they are, but we need to know who they are. And it starts, and I tell everyone all the time, it starts with knowing their name. I start my day with the children. I start my day outside. Unless I'm in a meeting, I am outside greeting the children every day. Parents will ask me, is that how you get to know them? Yes, that is how I help reinforce how I get to know their names, but I make sure I get to know their names because, one, they know my name, and two, they are a part of our community. You heard Dean say, if he could add one more virtue, it would be community, because we are a community. And as part of a community, we know each other's names, and especially for the little ones. They're leaving your home. They're leaving their homes. They're leaving mommy and daddy and grandma. They're leaving that family structure to come to spend their school day. And for many of them, it's the first time they're coming to school. And so it's very important for us. It's very important for them that they are known. And as I said, it starts with their names. And we also build community in the classroom through our responsive classroom approach. We start our day with morning meetings where the children learn to greet each other. They learn to greet their teachers. They learn to make eye contact. They end the day in community as well, reflecting on the day. And then there's also, we have a course called Balance Blocks, which our school psychologist, she partners closely with the teachers, where the children learn, because part of play is also learning how to play, because there are different aspects of play. And sometimes play can get bumpy. And so how do they learn to regulate their emotions? How do they learn to, navigate those rules of fair play? How do they learn to be an upstander and a bystander and being a kind friend? And sometimes, yes, it will get bumpy. And of course, parts of being a community is learning how to interact with people that are different from you, who may think differently, not just look differently, but they will think differently. You may have a friend, and your friend might, attend the Kingdom Hall, or maybe they attend the synagogue. Or you might have a friend who celebrates one holiday and a friend who celebrates a different holiday. And so there are different ways that we acknowledge and celebrate differences and commonalities here at King. And the children are always asking questions. They wonder. And sometimes in their asking questions, they might end up hurting the feelings of a friend. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes in their asking questions, they might end up hurting the feelings of a friend. And it's not because they're being intentional or mean or malicious, but it's because they really are curious in the same way they're curious about, wait, why is the sky blue? Or wait, why is that bug, all of the bugs going to the pumpkin? How come the pumpkin, when we left it outside, it got soft and now I dropped it, it's smashed? It's the same. When they see someone who thinks or looks differently from them, or who speaks a different language, or whose family structure is different from them, they are also curious about that, and they're going to ask each other questions. And our curriculum also reflects it. We make sure that there are books in our classrooms that represents various cultures, various family dynamics. We want the children to be able to see a world that exists not just here in Stamford, Connecticut, but this global world. It's important that they learn how to be a friend to this human race that we are part of. And that is how we focus and nurture curiosity and also ensure that children are seen, that they feel valued, and know that we honor them and that they are a part of our community. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Sandy. Every time when I hear this, I just feel I'm the new kid on the block. I just feel really proud that I'm the head of the school because and the fact that we can have this kind of a conversation and really honor kids and honor their curiosity. It's great. So I know you all want to get to the classrooms, which is really the best part of the day, but we do have time for one or two questions if anyone has a question they would like to ask of the three of us. Yes? Okay. Do you want to start?
Absolutely. We're looking for, in the same way, as I said, the children are curious, right? And so we look for teachers that are also curious, teachers that have an open mind, teachers that are also learners, teachers that are looking to continue to grow. You're probably thinking I was going to say a teacher with a master's degree, a teacher that's coming from Columbia University. No, we want someone who is curious. We need someone who is excited about teaching, excited about learning, who's also excited about the Reggio approach, project-based learning, this hands-on approach that we say that we talk about, because yes, the children are getting messy physically, but their brains are getting messy, and we need someone who's able to gently guide the children into that learning process, and when they hit those bumps, to be able to recognize that they've hit that bump and to be able to come to their level and understand developmentally how do you nurture and guide the child to understand and get through that bump, get through the frustration. And also now how do we pull the team together to ensure that that child is thriving, and how do we partner with you as a family? That's what we look for. Carol,
Thanks.
Nina,
That's Sandy.
Marnie?
I'm going to just, I know I'm watching Nina, who's watching our clock. So I'm going to, if it's okay, just see if there's one more question that we can answer. And then, yes. Sure. I mean, I'll just take that for a second. I think that we measure both. And what I mean by both is we look at each individual child and make sure that they are continuing to grow and develop in the way that our educators, because of all of our experience, we know what that looks like. I sometimes say we also know when to put up the red flag. And what I mean by the red flag is when we need to use that team approach that Sandy mentioned to say, to ask the question, is this just developmental, meaning it will come in time, or does this require some outside kind of help or guidance? Does this require some kind of an intervention, if you want to call it that, to make sure that we're putting the resources with the child to ensure that they continue to grow? At the same time, we also have sets of expectations of what our kids are going to be able to do at each grade level within a range, because we really believe that, you know, Marnie talked so beautifully about developmental levels. Kids, we could say that this is a third grader and this third grader must be able to do this, but that just isn't the way the world is, and it isn't the way kids are. So there is a range of what we consider to be our expectations. And again, you know, it's an art and a science, because on the one hand, there's very specific milestones that we know kids need to reach, and on the other hand, we need to be able to see, as I said, when it's going to happen in time and when it may not happen in time without help. So I hope that answers that question. Great. Anything else? Well, you'll have a chance to certainly talk to the teachers and ask your questions there as well, and Nina's going to tell you how to get there.
Thank you. You know me so well. Yes, we're going to take you over to the lower school. When you exit the auditorium, there will be tour guides who will take you to the lower school and help you find your way around. We ask that the first stop you make is to the classroom level that your child would be entering in next year. So if your child would be starting in pre-K, please go straight to the pre-K classroom. If your child would be starting in grade 3, please start in grade 3. And then after you meet with that teacher, then you can walk around to any of the classrooms you'd like to, whether it would be a subsequent grade or whether it be one of our special teachers, which means that they do art and music and library and technology and Spanish and physical education and all of those co-curricular programming that we offer. So thank you so much for joining us today. And if you'll walk out to the auditorium, we'll get you on your way.
Thank you.